talking about what makes up a good design, and how that relates to function. Can you see any relationship to function through color, shape, and form? So maybe you want to add something?
Well, I think on the function, I think of the color, shape, and form in particular, what color does for instance, if the Coke machine weren't bright red and white and so appealing, like I said, if it were dark brown, would you go buy Pepsi instead? No, I mean, what is going to sell? What's going to appeal? Why would you buy a chair that's possibly uncomfortable, but it's shaped like a person, so it's so much more appealing? What makes you want that chair? And you may regret buying that chair later. So I think things like that would be interesting. And then high and low art, I think, is a little bit difficult to spot here, but you could spot it. This is definitely what I would call fine art. The Liechtenstein, as opposed to the Coke machine. So I think there's a lot of things that we can do with.
So would you do, for example, a compare and contrast if you're talking about design and high and low art?
Yeah.
You'd say, let's look at this and let's look at that and let's talk about.
Yeah, and in particular with high art, I think that also Billy Livingston, I think you're looking at automotive design, so it still melds. High art has taken on things that are commercial. For instance, this is, I think, also automotive, the metal.
The car culture.
The car culture, I think, and
I think it's hard for fourth graders, if that's what we're talking about, to understand high art and low art. But I think if we talk about what do you see in your kitchen cabinet, do you see a Campbell soup can? And can that be art? Can somebody make that art? Talking about it that way, everyday use of things. I think it'd be really hard, the high and low of it, I barely understand it.
Well, and it also looks like, for kids, they would interpret that as a judgment. Something high is of greater value than something.
Yeah,
They're always asking, how much does this cost? What's the most expensive thing in
But of
there?
course, that is in fact the whole point of that high-low art, which is it was a judgment call.
Yes.
And the whole idea of upending that that concept for art.
And low art had to find its value, which it certainly did eventually, Andy Warhol and so forth, some of those. But another thing that we're comparing and contrasting are the different chairs that you see, everything from the, balancing little bicycle chair to all of the ones. And it might be fun to ask them, which chair would you want? Why? Does the shape or the color influence your decision? And I always like them to evaluate from their own perspective something, whether it's shiny or whatever, we've discussed the color and so forth. But I think we have such a variety of chairs here that we can incorporate a theme of design and function with preference.
Something that crosses my mind as I'm looking at everything is how very early on we're going to need to talk to the students and say that the chairs are not for sitting there because they appear as such everyday items that the kids will need to be told these are part of the exhibit, and as much as you might like to, we can't permit it.
That promotes the very theme.
Exactly.
That these everyday things are considered art because design.
I think when we talk to the audience to begin with, we always say something about touching or not touching. And I always say to the kids, especially when we had the last one with the bead man and all that stuff, I said, you're going to want to touch, but you can't. They never did.
But
And say so before you get in here.
Huh?
I have a question to go back to high and low art. But what would be an example? If you say a Campbell soup can, it's a judgment, I realize it. What would be an example of low art?
I think if you I have trouble with that. Traditional art would be considered, I mean, Rembrandt.
It's intent, it's intent. If something graphic is presented because they're trying to give you the experience of some kind of aesthetic experience or some kind of symbolic, that's one thing. Low art is more functional, and in what comes to mind is like advertising. The Campbell Soup's can is trying to get you to buy it. The Campbell Soup can is to inform you this is this product, isn't it delicious, you want to buy it. But then we look at it from an artistic standpoint and we say, oh, but this is some graphic thing that's in my house and it's part of my reality, and I appreciate the color, the font, you know. Though that's the distinction I see, is that how do you view it? And what is its intent?
So if it's more of a commercial intent,
It could be a commercial.
that would be a
Lower art.
But it's okay to not walk away defining these things. I think it's I think it's okay to start the conversation, and you don't have to. I don't know, Jennifer.
but that makes us feel more comfortable.